Charlene, we're ready to go live.
Okay, I'll let you know when we're live.
Okay.
We are live.
Good afternoon, members of the public. Welcome to this special meeting of the Maryland State Board of Education hosted on Zoom today. We are here for a special item relating to a regulation that we reviewed in December as it relates to charter schools, and we have since received feedback that we'd like to incorporate into the regulation. And so today we will be considering the action to actually republish those regulations before they go out to full public comment in the Maryland Register. At this time, I'd like to call on the board's executive director, Mr. Zachary Hands, to tell and share a little bit more about our action today. Mr. Hands?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Michael, members of the board, Dr. Wright.
Hold up, Mr. Hands, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You know what? I skipped right by making sure we have quorum. So before you fully dive in, Mr. Schoen, I believe we have quorum, but can you confirm that we have quorum?
You do have a quorum. You have, I believe, 10 members present right now.
Outstanding. All right. Thank you for bearing with me, Mr. Hands. If you'll go ahead and lead us through this agenda item.
No problem. So today before the full board is once again COMAR 13A0210, Maryland Public Charter School Program for permission to publish, coming with one recommended change to alter the percentage of the special education adjustment that can be applied as a shared cost deduction from 8% to 10%. This recommendation comes after receiving additional feedback from stakeholders and policymakers, as well as further analysis of school budgets. This change raises the ceiling on the special education adjustment provision from 8% to 10% to ensure fairness in the model. I'm pleased to have members of the team here as well to assist with any specific questions that encompasses the scope of the requested change today. The request is for the board to make this change as we publish these before we publish these regulations for public comment. By making these changes today, we are able to keep the regulation on track for publication in the February edition of the Maryland Register for public comment. So with that, happy to answer any questions, process or otherwise. You're muted, Dr. Mike.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Hands. And just wanting to lift that timing is really important on these regulations. One of the goals of the board has been to ensure that we have these rules in place for as soon as possible for the budget cycle for schools, which is beginning or has already begun in most districts. But should it go through in February, it could return to the board later in the spring, such that it could be incorporated for the upcoming school year 26-27. So that is the reason we are calling a special meeting to keep this on track. At this time, I'll open it up for any questions that board members have for Mr. Hands or for members of the team. Dr. Lewis.
Just to clarify, posting for public comment means there's an additional period to get input, correct?
That's right.
I just want to make that clear. Yeah.
Thank you for making that clear. And just to emphasize, this is exactly what you said. Posting it for public comment. This is not a final decision. This is a required review period. And we must go through this anytime we publish and or make any changes to a reg that are under consideration.
Thank you.
Any other process or substantive questions regarding this regulation? Zach, so just to review, we're looking Mr. Hands, we're looking at COMAR 13A 0210, Maryland Public Charter School Program. This is a proposed new regulation. Ms. Medina.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just wanted to ask and double check. I know that there was the committee that was formed that had been doing kind of all the work behind crafting the regulation, that kind of stuff, that had started or agreed to the 5%. And then at the December meeting, it was up to the 8%. And then now we're at the 10%. And so I'm just kind of wondering, was that when we say that feedback from additional stakeholders, was that committee? Was it just additional kind of different? I just want to make sure that we have kind of a streamlined understanding of where the changes are coming from.
Yep. So specifically on this, remember there are a couple percents that are important to piece out. We have the administrative fee, which is the now 5%, which had a range at one point. And this is the special education adjustment and the notion of a maximum that can be reallocated for special education. And so these are two different constructs. In terms of feedback, as a part of the process, the regulation goes to AELR, which is the committee of legislative policymakers, legislators. And we received a lot of feedback additionally, or some feedback additionally through that process, both from stakeholders, but this is not necessarily from the committee. This is as it went to that next stage. There was additional feedback that we received, and particularly since the notion of a cap on the special education adjustment was relatively new, right, in the process. It was something that we had developed as a board after the recommendation came from committee. We thought it was really important to hear that feedback, to be responsive, and to take another look. And that's why we've come back and landed at the 10% on the cap for special education. Really good question.
Thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Other questions? Ms. Chang.
Yeah, thank you, President Dr. Michael. Yeah, my question is that I know 2 is not a huge number. However, before we make the decision and get some public comment, should we provide some kind of common ground about that 2% of cap increase to the 10% cap? What are the financial impact for the local LEAs versus what is the benefit or outcome we try to gain?
So the net difference, so it's a great
2%.
question. It's a really good question, Ms. Chang. So what I would say is what this allows for is for a school district to reallocate more money from the original allocations to the special education budget. So this net could mean potentially more money being withheld up front from a charter school allocation and being redistributed as a part of the special education program. Some of that money will come back to charter schools, but it means there's more accommodation for that. So that's what the fiscal impact would be. Obviously, it's going to vary by school district. That's part of what our staff has been doing, is analyzing different components and seeing what that impact would be. But obviously there would be an impact, and that's why it's a significant change, and we wanted to take that on here. I want to make sure, did I answer your question, or should we lean on staff to get more detail?
Yeah, the answer part of my question about the fact is that the pot of money, I think it's a set number. If it got capped and pushed more, 2% increase to the cap, then means there are some programs with this current system might be eliminated or kind of justified in some way. And I was trying to see, what are the pros and cons, what are the big bang to those increase. Yeah.
Well,
But yeah,
specific
we
to the
can,
feedback,
discuss more.
we have heard feedback on both sides of this issue. We have heard that more special education adjustment in districts could be a real challenge for charter schools, particularly in districts where this could, based on their current practices, that this could be more money removed. We've also heard, particularly from school districts that have larger proportions of charter schools, that not making this accommodation would mean, and not making it closer to increasing from an 8 would actually threaten funding for critical special education programs, where additional funds are needed from funding sources other than those dedicated for special education to meet legal requirements. So you are correct. There's one pot of money. And at the same time, there are programs on both sides of this. And our recommendation here is to make this adjustment based on that further analysis.
Thank you.
Dr. Lewis?
And I think you mentioned this, Dr. Michael, but just to reassure, and wouldn't it be true if a charter school has several students with disabilities with really high needs, those monies come back to the schools for those students out of this additional 10%?
Correct. It's not a
Okay.
straight deduction, it's an adjustment
Right.
to realize revenues to match the actual expenditures.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Ms. Medina, is that a question?
Yeah, I was trying to unmute. Thank you for reading my eyes. I appreciate the breakdown you gave, and I think that is my question / concern, is because the regulation is, a statewide adjustment that we're making, but they operate under different charters, and the different LEAs have different distributions, different kind of things. I'm just, you kind of noted too, there might be a different impact in, let's say, a Baltimore City versus an Anne Arundel or Frederick, and like how can we adjust for that so it's not kind of, I guess, unduly. I don't know that we can make it
Yeah, it's a
fair,
great
or if that
question.
makes any sense, but it does seem like there might be some inequity there, if I'm understanding it correctly.
This is a really good question. And one of the design features here, Mr. Hans, do you want to touch on this, how these are not like required formulas, but the administrative fee and the special education adjustment these are maximums, right? And how that might play out differently within districts?
Right. So it's a ceiling. And yes, I may call on someone to help explain that a little bit more. If Ms. Gable or Ms. Beck are on.
I'm just giving Mary a second. Okay, so if I understood correctly, the special ed adjustment is not you have these exact expenses and therefore you deduct them. It acknowledges that there is this district-wide obligation to serve special education students, and whether the 8% or the 10% is saying a portion of that can be deducted from the per pupil allocation. It's not saying it covers everything. It's not saying I don't know if this is the right analogy, but if the people say I can take a deduction, they say you can take 10% of it this year and 10% of it next year. It's like not intended to cover the entire what has been defined as the overage or the adjustment.
And I think, go ahead, Ms. Gable.
I'm sorry, Dr. Michael.
No, please.
I just want to just reinforce what you've already said and Zach said. It is, quote, not to exceed. So it is not a definitive, you must at this amount, 8%, but it says special education adjustment is not to exceed. So you're correct in the question about, and again, it is a percentage. So when you take a look at the different LEAs that have charter schools, again, it is a percentage of their amount of money. So is it going to be different? Yes, it's going to be different based on their size because it's a percentage. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
I appreciate that. That makes a lot more sense. So I guess my question to the team then would be, would it be possible to consider, like, is there any way to do, what's the implementation process? Like, is there provisions or anything to actually show the actual impact from the charter school in the timeline, or because I feel like I completely understand we've got to move, we've got to get things done. But I just want to make sure that we're not harming, right? Or like causing, any problems with some of those smaller schools. And I don't know that we have the information for that. I don't know if I'm stating that correctly, but I just don't know in the implementation part, like, is there timeline provision for this is how it would affect us? What would that mean?
Yep. And I think this is the challenge, right, for us essentially as a regulatory body versus an administrative body, which our local school systems are. So we are in this regulation, we are setting forth new rules that, through extensive work in our opinions, the committee, we're setting down train tracks that we believe are the most fair. We know there will be impacts, and you've lifted particularly on small schools that serve fewer higher income populations that receive less compensatory education funds. It is within the local district's hands, just like we're seeing with the blueprint with small schools, and with schools that receive less special population funding, to accommodate and make plans to ensure continuity of education in those schools and for those students and families. And so, I think part of it is we've got to be aware of this, but also let our local school districts make decisions that are in the best interest of their schools and their communities about how they're going to fund, if they choose to maximize or not, based on the feedback that they're receiving from their school communities. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for that.
Okay. Dr. Lewis?
And Dr. Michael, doesn't this help with transparency on behalf of both the school system and the charter school to make sure they're having meaningful conversations about the special education adjustment overall?
Absolutely. And to Ms. Benita's question, a big component of the regulation are those transparency processes, because right now these rules don't exist. We're not amending rules. We are putting the rules down. And one thing I just want to revisit, that we all should be aware of, is a commitment for us to revisit this in a timely manner. We know that we may not get it all the way right, but that getting clear guidelines and policies down is going to be critical. We'll revisit and take that feedback as we go.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion at this point to for us to approve to republish the amended version of COMAR 13A0210, Maryland Public Charter School Program. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay. I see Mr. Greer, second by Dr. Goldson. Great. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, then we'll move to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. At this time, this is the end of our full board meeting agenda. Thank you all for accommodating our special meeting today. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, I've got a motion from Mr. Chesterfield, a second by Ms. Chang. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, we are adjourned. And those of you who are attending education policy, we have a different link for that. So now is the time to go over that. Members of the public, we'll see you on the next YouTube link on